Hey everybody, just wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Kobold Press, maker of the Tome of Beasts, the Midgard campaign setting, the Kobold Guides 2, and many other fine third-party RPG products. Today I want to talk to you about the Zobek Gazetteer. It is an amazing product by game designer and friend of the show, James J. Hake. James J. Hake, you may know as a person who I worked with on Dragon Heist, as well as a guy who worked on the Tal'Dorei campaign setting. He's an amazing designer, and the Zobek Gazetteer is an amazing city book that works in Midgard or any campaign setting you want to drop it into. It features NPCs like Troll Bouncers and the Mouse King, and locations like the Arcane Collegium and the Kobold Ghetto. Hooks and lore for gangs, guilds, and gods of the city. And it doesn't just stop there. The Zobek Gazetteer includes the School of Clockwork Magic, backgrounds and feats for Gearforged and humans, plus unique magic items for the setting. You can check it out at the Kobold Press store at koboldpress.com. Search for the Zobek Gazetteer. This is Tabletop Babble. I'm James Introcaso. Today on the show, I'm talking to Amit, who is the designer behind City of Mist. City of Mist is an RPG that is nominated for several Ennies this year and is just an amazing product. We are going to talk all about it and how to build noir mystery. He has a great handle on that. Right now, there is a City of Mist Kickstarter for a book called Knights of Payne that is awesome. It's a campaign book. It gives you 10 new cases or adventures that you can play through for City of Mist. Plus, you can get in on the ground floor. You can get core rule books. You can get all kinds of amazing stuff on this Kickstarter. And guess what? My writing will be featured in Knights of Payne. I am going to contribute a case, and I am also one of the first stretch goals for the Kickstarter, and for a little additional thing I'll be doing. So check it out, okay? You're going to want to go to Kickstarter right now and search for City of Mist. Click on Knights of Payne, and here is my conversation with Amit. So now I am here with an amazing game designer and storyteller. Very excited to have you here. Before we get down to our discussion, Amit, tell people who you are and what you do in the world of tabletop role-playing games.
Thank you for all that, all the compliments. So I'm Amit Moshe, creator of City of Mist role-playing game, which is a game about ordinary people in a modern-day city who gain legendary powers. That's pretty much it. I've been doing mostly that. It's a game that has elements of Apocalypse World, Lady Blackbird. Some people say Fate as well. You know, we kickstarted it 2 years ago, and it was a big success. And now we're in the midst of our second Kickstarter, and we released the core book last year, end of last year. I think people are liking it, which is great. We've been nominated for a few Ennies. So very exciting times. Yeah, I'm happy to be involved in all this and to be creating games. It's a big privilege.
Yeah, congratulations on your Ennie nomination. That is huge, and it's well deserved. This is it's beautiful, and it's a really elegant system, I would say, because I think if people are familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, they know, it's a normal, you roll 2d6, depending on, there's sort of 3 different levels of outcome, depending on where your modified dice roll lands. But you've taken that, and instead of attributes modifying dice roll, you've got tags, right? Talk to me a little bit about those mechanics before we get into like our main discussion, just because I think it's so cool.
Well, first of all, what we did is that your modifier for the roll is based on tags. Your character has about 12 tags when you start the game. These tags can represent anything: skills, powers, abilities, allies, resources that your character has, personality traits. And whenever these apply to a situation, or more accurately, to the action you're taking, when they apply directly to the action you're taking, each one of those tags adds 1 to your roll. So there are also weakness tags. It takes away from your roll, but the whole game is designed to be very creative, very narrative. You know, obviously some people create tags like shotgun or strong, or the more immediate things you can think of. But there are really nice uses to the tags. Like people can have catchphrases, or like the more the merrier, and then like you're more powerful in situations where there's a lot of people or adversaries involved. So there's a lot of creativity around the tags, and I felt it was really essential because the only thing I really love, powered by the Apocalypse games, but the only thing that's kind of tricky there is when you try to be flexible with the power sets and the abilities, and that was essential for a game like City of Mist. And because PBTA games are based on set moves, so this was kind of my way to unlock limitless possibilities for people to be able to describe their own powers and abilities or characteristics or traits the way they want it, and still have this really tight mechanic that's fun to play and doesn't get really hand wavy, if you know what I mean, as some of the more narrative mechanics can become.
Yeah, it feels like it's a great way to be able to have superpowers in a game. I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is have superpowers in a game and then not have the game get super duper bogged down in very specific mechanics that cover all these different niche cases that superpowers can create. And you've created this sort of flexible system that can be applied to different characters in different situations, that doesn't get so crunchy it's confusing, but also gives you enough mechanics to be able to do whatever you want, which I think is great. So it's really cool. And City of Mists itself, I think we should sort of describe the tone and setting a bit, because I think these mechanics coupled with the setting are sort of great for what we're about to talk about, which is mysteries.
So City of Mist is, at its core, it's this graphic novel. It's a graphic novel noir game, right? So things like Jessica Jones, if you can think about the detective stories, things like Fables. The setting is definitely very mysterious, as you are actually a person who discovers there's a legend inside you, and this legend grants you these superpowers or supernatural powers, but it also drives you to kind of fulfill the legend in many different ways in the city. And the city itself is called City of Mist. It has this special effect or spell or mystical barrier or veil in it called the mist that kind of makes people forget about their legend, makes people forget about or be distracted whenever someone is using their mystical powers around them. So it's this kind of mystical psychological effect that keeps the legends very much hidden in the city. So as a character, even though you have your own legend and you are not as susceptible to the mist, you're actually doing a lot of investigating in the game. You're investigating side by side with, kicking butt and that kind of stuff, but you're investigating your own legend and where your powers came from. But also when you're trying to investigate crimes and all kinds of noir stuff, a lot of the normal people don't remember the legends, so it's really hard to crack the cases when your evidence is constantly disappearing. Yeah, so there's definitely that very strong detective streak to the game.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I never have seen a mechanic quite like that. That means like, oh man, we're going to deal with this situation. People are not going to remember what happened. We're not going to have the eyewitness testimony necessarily to go off of. It won't be as reliable as we thought. So we really kind of everything is a mystery in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of different elements to the game. There's also one of the core mechanics is the battle between the ordinary and the legendary inside you, and that's a whole another thing we can talk about, because the mechanic supports it. You can become more legendary or more ordinary, and you can go overboard to each direction. You can actually forget your legend or become an avatar of your legend, and this is only the rules. But I think the part that is actually most relevant to the what we're talking about today, the mystery games and the investigations, is the investigate move. So the game has 8 core moves, one of them in the investigate, and I think that's the thing that I really had to kind of think about how to craft that in order so people can run a mystery without every kind of role exposing everything, but still giving a lot of power to the players. So yeah, this was essential because, as you say, the setting it's kind of built into the setting that things are vague, things are mysterious, things are not necessarily as clear or as easy to reveal as they would be maybe in real life.
Yeah, that is so totally true, which makes it a perfect thing to talk about. So we should discuss what you've got going on right now as we talk about our mystery. You have a Kickstarter right now for City of Mists. It is Nights in Paintown, right? Knights of Paintown?
Yeah, Knights of Paintown. Yeah, it's like Paintown is just a name for the city. It's Knights of Paintown is basically a set of 10 cases that are interconnected and comprise a story arc that you can play. You can play the cases separately. You can play them as the story arc, which obviously is going to be much cooler if you have time for that. And it basically runs you through a whole season or I guess campaign of City of Mist. Like any City of Mist story arc, and the core book kind of helps you build your own versions of those story arcs if you want. It revolves around the operation of one of those modern day legends who became an avatar. So the story about avatars is that the more you let your legend take over, the more it wants everyone to be a part of that legend. So let's say you're Alice in Wonderland. So maybe you want to make the city into your own Wonderland, or let's say you're I don't know, what's your favorite legend?
Oh man, I'm a big Greek and Roman mythology person.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm a big Jason and the Argonauts guy. Is one of my
Cool,
favorites.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So maybe you're after the Golden Fleece and you're willing to just tear the city apart until you find it. It automatically turns you into a villain. It is kind of gray because some of the legends are good characters, but when they start kind of pushing their agenda to the limit, it always becomes a sort of an avatar, sort of a supervillain kind of thing. And the way it works in City of Mist is that each one of the stronger you are, the more legendary you are, the more the mist is going to cover you. So these characters are deep in the mist. Nobody knows who they are, but they run operations that affect the whole city. So when you investigate a case as a player or as a crew of characters, you start by picking off at the, street level cases, different crimes or wrongdoing or things like that. They don't really necessarily connect directly, obviously, to the avatar, but you start realizing there's someone on the street who's actually gaining from that, and that could be like one of the avatar's minions. So it's a whole pyramid basically that you're gradually uncovering, and sometimes you go sideways and you uncover extra other branches in the pyramid, and from case to case you'll be delving deeper and coming closer to the avatar, facing stronger opponents, of course, and stronger bigger challenges. But this whole inverted pyramid we call the iceberg model, and we use it also to build a single case, like everything is built in a single case, like an iceberg, and then also a story arc. So all these cases combine into all the little icebergs in the cases combine into this big story arc iceberg.
So let's talk about kind of that iceberg model. I think that's a really cool way to approach mystery writing, and I think it's something that no matter what system you're using, if you're working on a mystery, that's kind of a good way to start, right? So when you are writing a mystery, do you start with the top of the iceberg or the bottom of the iceberg? Like, how do you start when you're designing it? Where do you start?
Yeah. So this is, by the way, this is all in the core book. We created a very detailed mystery writing guide there, and I'm gonna say what we say there, and that's the way I write it. I always start with the bottom of the iceberg, or I would always start with basically the avatar or the villain or the cause. Basically, I start with the truth. Before I even start writing the details, I want to know what happened, who started it, and what happened, and how that trickles down to the visible layer that the players are going to meet. And that could be a very kind of long or complex way of trickling down through many other people, or it could be something, pretty relatively flat or not, or let's say call it shallow, that isn't too deep, and then there's like maybe just a couple of layers. But I definitely start from the bottom. I think that you can't really create something that's juicy. You can do that, of course, but I think it's much better to start when you see the bigger picture.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you're absolutely right. Like if you know sort of what is going on, it's easier to build a mystery around it, right? Like it's easier to start with like this is the end, or this is where what should eventually be revealed. How do we reveal it, right? How do we go from there? So once you have that, how do you go from there?
When I start, I write a backstory. So for me, the backstory is the story of how things evolved from the bottom of the iceberg to the tip of the iceberg, which is what is first revealed. So I work on that, but I also try to think about layering things. And we have this thing called depths in City of Mist when you build a case. So there are different depths, and the way you build it is that you can never skip over it. The players will never be able to skip over a depth, like one of the depths. They have to go through all of them. They can't go from depth 0, which is where they start, to depth, let's say 4, where the story ends, or where the revelation is. It has to be built in a way that they can't really take a shortcut and eliminate entire parts of your case. Otherwise, you'll be working very hard on sections that they'll never see. And it's okay if they miss some of the branches, but if they can just, like, with the right question, reach the end of the story in one scene, that's not a very fun case to delve into. This gets trickier with Powered by the Apocalypse game that are very player focused, player driven, and the agency is very, very much in the player's hands. So how do you do that? But that was another challenge.
Yeah, well, and I think you have a even another challenge on top of that, which is superpowered characters, right? It's easier to solve a crime if you have superpowers. Whether it's you can, smash your way in through a building to get the evidence you need, or it's you're able to read minds. You've sort of got all of these superpowers. So how do you deal with that too when you're writing these cases, like the cases you're laying out right now in Knights of Paintown?
So that's really interesting because the whole game system in City of Mist is built to allow you to use your powers to the max and at the same time not break the story. Basically, the way it does that is that you have ordinary, or not, I guess not ordinary, but like your standard use of your powers, and then you have a more powerful extreme use of your powers. And whenever you use the your powers in a standard way, you're using the same move, the investigate move, that you would use to investigate without powers. But because you have all these tags, they allow you to, first of all, get a better result, and secondly, to also access information that wouldn't normally be accessible to someone without powers. By the way, one of the nice things about the game is that characters that are more legendary aren't really stronger than characters that are more ordinary. Because characters that are more ordinary could have the same number of tags. They're just going to be things like, I'm a good detective, I have, an eye for details, I have connections in the city, stuff like that. You would still roll higher. You would still get more, better results. It just would have the flavor of a more ordinary detective as opposed to a legendary power detective. But the main way to control the progression of player characters in general is the investigate move. So the investigate moves generates something called clues, and clues are questions that the players can ask. And the crux of it is that the MC or the GM or the DM doesn't have to give the answer. They can give a clue. Whenever a player gains clues, they can ask whatever question they want. They are not limited. They can ask, who's the killer? I mean, that's what the character's trying to do, right? I'm in the crime scene. I'm investigating something, or I'm kind of exchanging, tense words with someone in a bar or something like that. Like all these scenes from the noir genre. But I'm trying to figure out who the killer is, so the players don't have to think too hard about what they want to figure out. But the MC gets to pick what they reveal. So they can they have to reveal something valuable if the character spent a clue, but it doesn't have to be the straight answer. So this gives the MC a lot of power in pacing the investigation. So let's say that I'm in one location and the player, like maybe depth 0, which is really initial, just like the first scene, and the player investigates, I don't know, the crime scene, some character jumped off a roof or something like that, and they're investigating that, and they ask me, okay, so was she pushed or did she jump? And as the MC, maybe I know the answer, of course, but I don't want to reveal it right away. So I can say I can give a clue that indicates that there was someone else on the roof, but not whether she was pushed or jumped. So that's the players really love that, because then the players are like, ooh, okay, I'm starting to, they're starting to connect it themselves. And at the same time, I didn't reveal the ending of the truth about it. They will have to continue the investigation to really uncover it. On the other hand, if they're already at the end of the investigation and I want to speed things up, I start giving more straight answers. This move really helps MCs pace the investigation.
Yeah, it is. It's really brilliant, and I think it's so good because you're right. It doesn't put the onus then on the player to find a specific clue, right? Which I think is that can be a hard thing to say, like, okay, well, if you don't find the bloody knife, you're never going to get the answer to this mystery. They can say, I'm looking around for, I want to know who did this, where were they, where blah blah, and you can say, oh well, over the course of your investigation you find this knife that points towards X, Y, or Z.
Don't go anywhere. There's more tabletop babble coming up.
I'm Lisa Chen, and I host Behold Her, a monthly podcast that shines a spotlight on women in the world of tabletop games. There are so many women to behold in this amazing hobby, and our experiences as female gamers are as diverse as we are as individuals. Through one-on-one interviews, audio essays, and panel discussions, all centered around a monthly theme, the guests on Behold Her share their unique stories as players, game masters, designers, artists, organizers, and so much more. Their words are inspiring, uplifting, and informative. Check out Behold Her Podcast wherever podcasts are found, or visit beholdherpodcast.com.
All right, back to the show.
Those superpowers, as you were saying, it encourages creative use of them. The idea behind tags, right? That like, ooh, I want to use as many tags as I can in as a check because it'll make a higher bonus for me, is really cool because it's going to lead to some very creative and interesting storytelling. And I'm sure some people will try to get super ridiculous with it sometimes, but that could lead to a really great story.
Yeah, totally. And of course, there's checks and balances in the system. There's a lot of optional rules that you can use to really completely not even worry about this stuff, like tag caps and grit mode, which basically means that they can really keep stacking those tags, but it's not going to give them a lot of bonus anyway. So if you have that kind of problem with your players, which I actually never experienced, but definitely that is a possibility. So the game offers a lot of checks and balances for that. But as you say, it could also get really creative. There are also checks and balances on how broad tags can be. So you can only have one broad tag, and the rest of your tags have to be pretty specific. So that's definitely something that was the main thing we had to deal with, basically, to make it a good, solid mechanic to use the tags. We definitely had to put all these checks and balances in there. But yeah, people use their tags in very extremely creative ways. It's true. I mean, one of the starters that pre-gens has the power to see through time. So she can go into a crime scene basically and see what happened. But again, all of these powers are limited, right? So she gets a flash of something. Maybe the player rolls and they get a clue and they ask a question, like we just said. And the MC can say, you see a figure, but you can't really see. The lighting isn't good. All those mystery techniques basically to give only a partial clue.
Yeah, that's great, right? And like you said, if it's a good roll and we're getting towards the end of the night and the players haven't figured anything out yet, you've also got that option to give them exactly what happened in this location. And it's one of the things that I guess we can reveal now that has attracted me to the project, and I'm going to be working on this project with y'all. So I am super, super excited to be helping write some cool stuff for all of you. I really do love this system, and I think it's so cool, and I like the way that you are you're sharing these mysteries. Now, when we talk about mysteries and we talk about the myths and we talk about the legends that are sort of associated, is there any limit to the legends that can be created with City of Mist. Like, for instance, in the core rulebook, I know that we're pulling from Moby Dick, and we're pulling from Greek mythology and Norse mythology and Egyptian mythology. Like, is there any sort of limit as to what you could pull into this?
Absolutely not. I had a player create a character around Michael Jordan, who he considered a legend, and I can totally get that. So, yeah, so absolutely not. We have people create characters around video game characters and stuff like that. So they had the powers of a video game character. There's really no limit. I mean, I usually try to balance. I did a lot of research, obviously, for the core book, and I usually try to balance between myths and then legends and then folklore and then folk tales. I guess it's the same, but there's like, there are different layers, and then fairy tales and modern, so to speak, modern creations and works of art. So we have things like, as you say, Moby Dick, and we have Don Quixote, and we have all these characters. Yeah, I think just play with it. Yeah, Baba Yaga, just get creative. I mean, I think people love that part, and especially I think people love kind of building that modern version of the character. That's what I think. That's people get a lot of kick out of that. She Baba Yaga, but she's supposed to be this old hag, but maybe in the city she's or maybe it's even a guy. Maybe it's like maybe it's a kid. Maybe it's we have a lot of variations. Maybe it's a detective. Maybe it's a doctor. Maybe it's a high flying executive. Maybe it's some hobo on the street. So we have all these. I think we did a Twitter game one time of like combine your legend with your modern day character, and the combinations are pretty cool. So you got a lot of places, a lot of room for creativity in character creation.
It also, I think that element of it helps with the mystery solving as well, right? Because the players can be chugging along in a mystery and say, oh my gosh, I think we're hunting Frankenstein's monster, right? Like there can be sort of this moment of like, okay, well now, like maybe based on my knowledge of this legend can sort of help guide where you want to go next or that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of players do that. There are some cases where the players are just not going to know the legend because it's so esoteric, and that's cool too, because in the end it's like this supervillain with mystical magical powers. But definitely sometimes people love it. They love discovering all of a sudden, oh my God, this person is, I don't know, the witch from Hansel and Gretel, or this. Yeah, they love it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and there were some when I was going through the core rules that I was like, Spider Grandmother, who is this? And then like I looked it up and I was like, well, now I'm gonna have nightmares forever. But there are these really cool finds too. I was loved how that too can help you as a GM craft a mystery, right? Because you can, I think a lot of times when we are writing adventures, particularly for our home games and stuff, we're doing a lot of like taking an idea that maybe we found somewhere else and twisting it and adapting it and changing it for our own thing. And City of Mist like gives you the permission to do that,
totally,
which I think is really great.
Yeah, I think the legends are beautiful sources, awesome sources for character motivations. Okay, so all the characters in City of Mist, like it's built into the setting, are kind of pulled in the direction of their legend, but some of them more so than others, and some of them have maybe directions that pull them in one way, but their ordinary lives also pull them in a different way. Maybe they're I don't know, they have the legend of the fairy godmother, but they're this violent thug. So it could be, you can have like really awesome characters, very, very complex. You can take it in many different ways. But as you said, you can also just pick up a legend. I was talking about Peter Pan there in the core book. So Peter Pan, if you take him to the limit, if you take his agenda to the limit, what is it going to be? I mean, it could be something like make everybody be young forever and drop their commitments and come to Neverland with me or something like that. And the more you kind of work with that, you start seeing that everything taken to the limit is a supervillain. So so you have a lot to work with, and yeah, I think that's what's so great about myths and legends, that they embody the basic building blocks of the psyche. So you have a lot of drives and a lot of power and a lot of desires, and that's a great material. That's great material for noir kind of story. Because in the end of noir, it's not just a mystery. Ooh, we discovered it. There's always some kind of like a corrupt end to a noir mystery. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's someone there that's like really, really got it all wrong, or took the wrong turn, or there's always some kind of revelation that kind of makes you think about things. So
I totally agree with that, right? That's part of noir, is there's sort of this gray area that at the end should leave people thinking or questioning something, right? Not necessarily about the case, but more about existence in the world in general, to get super deep.
yeah, and it also happens to the characters, because there's almost in every City of Mist case there is a dilemma at the end, because some of the characters identify with the supervillain. They're like, yeah, we need to do this. This is the right thing to do, and the other characters are like, this guy's a killer. This guy's a thief. This guy's I don't know. We can't help them, and there's a lot of potential for very interesting PvP stuff if your group is into that, but also just like arguments between the characters.
Totally, you're absolutely right. Like I said, this is a very, very cool system that's going to have an actual play starting this month on Encounter Roleplay. So if people want to see what City of Mist is like, City of Mist RPG actual play there on the Encounter Roleplay network, they should definitely go check that out. And Knights of Paintown is cases, but there's also going to be more stuff coming with Knights of Paintown, right?
Yeah, you can already get, first of all, you can get the core book split into the player guide and the MC toolkit. So everything we talked about today is in the MC toolkit. And the player guide is kind of like, we wanted to split the book because we got a lot of feedback that the book is huge and it's intimidating. So it is my first book. So I stopped holding back, as there's a move called stop holding back. That's pretty much what I did there. But the system is actually relatively rules light. So this was the only thing about the core book. Everyone loved it, and it got a lot of 5-star reviews on Amazon, and that's awesome. But people said, the one thing is that it's quite intimidating. And I said, okay, we can't have that, because we want a lot of players to try out this very accessible system. So we decided to split the book into two. You can get the player guide and the MC toolkit. And the other thing we have, you can already get on Knights of Paintown, is Shadows and Showdowns, which is an expansion for the city that kind of delves into the avatars, more locations, more dangers, bestiary. It has like an in-depth look at the gatekeepers, the people, the organization behind the Mist. So if you want to kind of take City of Mist one step further, you can also grab that.
That's really cool. And the art style too is just one other thing I feel like I really need to comment on here. It's this great gritty comic book style. It really has its own look, which is a pretty incredible thing to pull off this day and age in tabletop role-playing games. Who are some of your artists?
So our lead artist is Marcin Sobon. He's a guy from Poland. He's amazing. We've known each other for a while. We worked together before, and we've been talking about City of Mist for years. And he definitely gave City of Mist that look and feel that you're talking about. We worked very hard to kind of narrow it down and lock it in. This kind of, it's still comic book graphic novel kind of style, but it definitely has that lighting of noir, and we're kind of constantly trying to refine that and bring that to the front. We also have Marius Schultz, who's another one of our main artists and also our cartographer. I don't know if you saw the location maps we have. You can also get those and all the accessories on the Kickstarter, and they're just amazing. In fact, just the maps were nominated for 2 Ennies. One of them, Best Miniature Product, which is very interesting because City of Mist is not really a miniature game. You can play it with miniatures, but it's not necessarily a tactical game. And we also had a bunch of other really talented artists kind of contributing a couple of pieces each to the book. And the book was nominated also for Best Interior Art. So someone must have liked it.
It's beautiful. It really, really is. Everything about it, there's a lot of care that has been put into this game, from the art to all of those extras that you were talking about, to the actual game and rules and text and cases. Everything is really well done. And that is something that takes a ton of time and is something that you should be commended for. And I think you've proven yourself with the core rules. And now Knights of Payne is out there, and people should check it out because it is really cool. I'm not just saying that because I worked on it, but I did work on it. So go check it out because it's going to be cool.
Thank you. We're excited. We're excited to have you on board. So that's a privilege as well.
Oh, thank you. It is a privilege for me to be able to work on such a great game. So if people want to check out the Kickstarter and if they want to know more about you and follow you, like, where should they go? What should they do?
So first of all, if you just look for the word Payne with a Y on Kickstarter, you will find our, or look for Knights of Payne with a Y. You will easily find it. You can also find us, of course, on Facebook. Just look for City of Mist. We have a very active group on Facebook if you want to ask questions and get into the game. We're also on Discord. We're obviously on Twitter. You can find us at City of Mist RPG. And basically, we're very easy to find. We're all over the place. So you're welcome to contact us if you have any questions. And yeah, definitely, if you like what you see, we'll love to have your support and make more awesome game stuff for you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a great conversation. It really has been. So thank you very much, Amit.
My pleasure.
That's a great conversation about a great new RPG you should check out that you can use to build amazing mysteries, City of Mist. You know, Tabletop Babble is still a new show, and you can help it grow. How? Head on over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review if you love the show. Why? Because it helps other people find the podcast. Even if they're not listing on iTunes, odds are their podcatcher app uses the iTunes algorithms to rate and recommend podcasts. And if you leave us a 5-star review, I will read it out loud on the show and credit the person who left it. You can make me say anything you want. I also want to tell you that we have a new show on Don't Split the Podcast Network. Check out Total Party Thrill. Total Party Thrill has been around for a while, but they are new to the DSPN family. Every week, Shane and Ishan give you great RPG advice for your table. It can apply to any system for the most part, and they build an awesome level 20 5th edition D&D character in the Character Creation Forge. Go check it out. They talk about their campaigns, and they are also hilarious in addition to being very smart. It is called Total Party Thrill. Welcome to DSPN, gentlemen. All right, people, if you want to follow what I am doing, check it out at worldbuilderblog.com and twitter.com/James Introcaso. If you were at Gen Con, you may have heard the news. I made an RPG. Along with Jim McClure, Kat Cole, and Darcy Ross, working with Roll20, the amazing Roll20 staff, and a host of awesome artists, we have created Burn Bright. It is an RPG that is exclusively for the Roll20 virtual tabletop platform. More details on that will be coming in future Tabletop Babbles and on World Builder blog, so be sure to check that out. I am super, super excited to share it with you. Tabletop Babble is a show on the Don't Split the Podcast Network. Thanks to Rudy Basso for founding it with me. Our theme music, which you're listening to right now, was provided by Battle Bards. Don't forget that RPGs are like sex. Conventions about the topic are endlessly useful.
Hey there, listeners. It's Shane.
And Ishan, your hosts from the Total Party Thrill podcast, the newest addition to the Don't Split the Podcast network.
We talk topics that help you, dear listener, create and play better RPG games.
We have a back catalog of more than 150 weekly episodes.
And we got nominated for an Emmy for episode 11, Social Contracts.
In episode 154, we talked about crossing the moral event horizon. How evil is too evil?
We also recap our home games, like the 40k Rogue Trader campaign, Dynasty Unwarranted.
But that's mainly just you trying to kill us all. In your defense, our characters are greedy idiots.
Don't forget the 3 years we spent in Eberron playing Morning Glory, your 5th edition D&D campaign.
We also review new RPGs and books, and every episode we build a 5th edition D&D character in the Character Creation Forge.
You might check out the Pint-Sized Punisher from episode 119, a halfling with a bad attitude, and 14 levels of Barbarian.
So to recap, Total Party Thrill, RPG advice, campaign recaps, and D&D characters built by your dashing hosts every single week.
What more could you possibly want?
To get back to the actual show?
Oh yeah, let me just hit this button, and here you go.